Welcome back to A Little Bit of Cheese, your daily bite-sized Wisconsin sports podcast. I'm your host, Cody Depius, and I welcome you back to another episode. Today is October 15th, 2024, as the New York Jets took a loss last night, 23-20, against the Buffalo Bills. There were a few mistakes towards the end of the game. Aaron Rodgers threw an interception that was intended for Mike Williams. Williams kind of had the ball in his arms, but it was picked off by the Bills defender, and that was an opportunity for the New York Jets to go down and score a game-winning touchdown, or to at least go down and tie up the ball game. But a lot of penalties in last night's game. It was a very sloppy week, in my opinion, overall for the NFL officials. Even in the Packers game, it felt like every other play there was a flag going on. Me and my friends, we all watched Red Zone, and there were just penalty flags all over the place. And the actual leader in yards from scrimmage yesterday in the Monday Night Football game between the Jets and the Bills was flags and penalties, with 204 yards given out from penalties last night. That is just ridiculous. 2 lengths of an entire football field in just penalties. It comes to an embarrassing point here for the NFL, but it's and a lot of those penalties that are called, even during all the Sunday games and yesterday, it's like when they're thrown and then you look back at them and then you say, okay, maybe, that might have been a penalty, but a lot of them they're very ticky-tacky is the way that I would describe it. And I like football where the guys are kind of allowed to play. No, I don't like egregious holding. No, I don't like egregious pass interference, and I don't want quarterbacks to be put in danger, but it gets to a point when the flags start overtaking a game, and that's really what we saw last night in that Monday Night Football game. Kind of just gross football. I don't like to watch it. I hope that the NFL finds a way to fix that, and that we don't have to watch penalty flags and watching the officials explaining what penalties the teams just committed as opposed to just watching football, because it just lengthens the game. It adds more boring parts to it, and nobody likes penalties. Penalties suck. They're stupid. No team wants to even win on penalties. Of course, if the other team is doing things that are egregious, yes, then you need to penalize them. But those ticky-tacky things, and even the way Rodgers said it in his post-game presser, there was a roughing the passer penalty that was called on the Bills' defense against Aaron Rodgers, and even Rodgers said in the press conference, he says that's not roughing the passer. And there are a lot of penalties that were thrown yesterday that just did not flat out need to be thrown. It got ridiculous. So that's my little official rant. There hasn't been anything too crazy in Packer games. Yes, there's been frustrating calls, but when it comes to just the Wisconsin sports and just the Packers, I'm not too frustrated. But as a fan who watches a lot of NFL games, not just the Packers, it was a very frustrating weekend. So there's my little rant on that. But some very big news to kick off this Tuesday. Davante Adams has officially been traded to the New York Jets. Of course, Davante Adams started his career in Green Bay and is now going back to reunite with his old quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. He was traded for a conditional third-round pick. It could turn into a second-round pick if Davante Adams is either a first or second-team All-Pro in his time with the New York Jets, or if he's on the roster for the Jets that makes an AFC Championship game or a Super Bowl. So I think that's really a pretty cheap price tag. I mean, it's pretty close to what Green Bay was able to get back for Davante Adams. I think they got back a second-round pick, and then I think there was an additional late-round pick. So very, very similar in trade talks here, which Davante Adams at the top of his game, especially when he played with Aaron Rodgers, was the best wide receiver in the National Football League. There were even those rough years for Rodgers. I think 2017, 2018, there wasn't a lot of bright spots, wasn't a lot of great things going on within the Green Bay organization. Those two carried whenever they were on the field. They were incredible to watch, and they linked up in a way that I had never seen. I'm a younger fan. Of course, people talk about Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison, or what Rodgers had maybe a little bit before with Jordy Nelson or Greg Jennings, but I had not quite seen the connection that I saw between an Aaron Rodgers and a Davante Adams and the relationship between a quarterback and his favorite wide receiver. It was really crazy stuff. And, of course, Rodgers leaves town and Davante Adams, knowing this is before actually Rodgers left town. It was the season before Rodgers was traded to the Jets. Davante Adams, he knew that he didn't really want to be in Green Bay anymore because he knew Rodgers was not going to be there. I don't think he had a lot of trust in Jordan Love, which at the time I don't think a lot of people in Green Bay did. This would have been 2 or 3 off seasons ago. 3 off seasons ago. Not a lot of people were on the Jordan Love train. Nobody really thought that he was going to be a good starting quarterback for the Packers. And Davante Adams being one of them, he kind of wanted out of Green Bay, and he wanted to go play with his former college quarterback, Derek Carr, who was in Las Vegas for the Raiders. Now, if you follow the NFL, you understand that Derek Carr underperformed pretty heavily in Vegas, and the rest of the team did as well. There was a coach that was fired during that time, and Derek Carr is no longer in Vegas. He is now in New Orleans playing for the Saints. So that whole experiment did not work out for Davante Adams. He played well for the Raiders. He was not like a bad wide receiver by any means, but he went there for the reason that he was going to connect with his old quarterback, and now that old quarterback isn't there. He's had Gardner Minshew throwing him passes earlier this year. Now the Raiders are in such shambles that Aiden O'Connell has taken over for quarterback, so it's not a great situation for a receiver who, in his prime, was the best in all of football. So I understand where Davante Adams is coming from. I understand why he wants to go to New York, play for the Jets. So they could definitely use another wide receiver, as they already have Garrett Wilson there, who I think could be a top 10 guy in the league. Allen Lazard is there. He's another former Packer. He played there with Rodgers and Davante, and they have Mike Williams. Those are the 3 wide receivers right now. You could definitely take in a Davante Adams, where you could then move a Allen Lazard to the slot as the 3rd receiver. But the top 3 receivers right now for the Jets, I'm not the biggest Allen Lazard guy. I never thought Mike Williams was a really good player in the NFL. I think he's a solid receiver, but there was a need there. But I think there are also a lot of other needs on this New York Jets team for Aaron Rodgers. And the gut feeling here, I don't expect this team to win the division. I don't really expect them to go to the playoffs. And this is more of just a gut feeling where I understand, and you have to look back at this too, where the Jets just a week ago fired their head coach in Robert Saleh, who was supposed to be the captain of this team. He was supposed to be the one that led these guys to the playoffs and the AFC Championship, and eventually, hopefully, the Super Bowl. Of course, Aaron Rodgers, another strong component in what the idea was there in New York, but with Saleh being fired, there's a lot of turmoil going on in New York. So there's negativity coming from Rodgers and what's going on there with the Jets. Of course, another tough loss last night. They're now 2-4. And Davante Adams, there's been a lot of things that have been said in the past, I'd say 12 to 14 months about the Raiders organization, not in a positive light with Davante Adams. Usually it doesn't mean a lot of great things when a player is requesting for a trade in the middle of a season. And I mean, honestly, I understand it because that team's not going to go anywhere. They're not going to win anything. And you only have such a long playing career in the NFL, the average career being only 3 years, which, of course, Davante has surpassed that a couple of times over now, but he hasn't won that Super Bowl. And he knows if he stays on this Raiders team, there's essentially no chance of them going to the Super Bowl. Like, it is like 0.0. That Raiders team is just bad. They got beat down by a Steelers team that I don't really think is that great. So Adams wanted out. He wants the opportunity to go win a Super Bowl, wants to go play with his old friend. I understand it. I don't think it's going to work. And you can come back and comment what you think. I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts as well. But with negativity coming from both sides, you have negativity plus negativity. It usually doesn't add up to positivity. And maybe it does. I mean, a negative and a negative make a positive, I guess, but that's not really the way things work in the real world. And fantasy football in real life, it doesn't work. The only time I can remember it working was when Tom Brady brought all his friends to go with him to Tampa, and they won a Super Bowl. That was the only time I've really seen it work. I mean, Christian McCaffrey going to the 49ers, you could call that a little bit of fantasy football, but I think that was just a good organization taking advantage of a really bad organization, which the Jets are not a good organization. We know that. That is solidified now. It's not like Davante is coming into a team that is already a super team. This is a team that has a lot of problems. There is a reason that this team is 2-4, and it's more than just not having two really good receivers. That there's a lot more of an underlying cause as to why that team has not found its success quite yet. Yes, it's only 6 weeks into the season, but my prediction, I don't see the Jets in the playoffs even with Davante Adams. Yeah, they're going to put up some fun stat lines probably, but when it comes to winning ball games and trying to go win a Super Bowl, I think they're a ways away from that. Some other interesting, more Wisconsin-based news here. Gold Glove finalists were announced by Rawlings in Major League Baseball. The Brewers have 3 finalists. The one who I think has the greatest chance to win a Gold Glove here, which for those that don't know, Gold Glove means that you are the best fielder at your position in your respective league. So the Brewers in the National League, they have actually 10 positions that they select from. There's pitcher, catcher, first, second, short, third, and then they do 3 outfield positions, and there's also a utility position. The Brewers do not have a utility guy that they have in candidacy for a Gold Glove. But for second base, Terang is one of 3 finalists for the Gold Glove there. And I think he played so good at second base this year that if he doesn't win, I think we have to riot, all of you Little Bit of Cheese fans and all your friends and family, and maybe even bring your pets along too. If Bryce Terang does not win a Gold Glove here, it's rigged. It'd be one of the biggest rob jobs I could think of. This is one of the greatest defensive seasons I have seen for a second baseman in my lifetime. He led the league in the infield in defensive runs saved. Now, that is a sabermetric. That is kind of hard to understand, but he made a lot of plays that prevented a lot of runs, essentially is what that means. And he was one of the best in all of baseball at it. He was third in all of baseball at any position in defensive runs saved, and he did it at second base. Now, the other 2 guys that are there also in contention and finalists for that Gold Glove at second base, they had better offensive numbers, which is where the Gold Glove is really weird. Sometimes voters don't understand that a Gold Glove just has everything to do with your glove and nothing to do with your bat, which Terang swung a solid bat this year. It wasn't even a league average bat, but he stole a lot of bases, and his batting average was okay. So I think his bat was good enough to win a Gold Glove, even though it shouldn't matter at all. But sometimes the voters will kind of, in the back of their mind, have the hitting statistics and the base running statistics also influencing their decision on who wins the Gold Glove. So it's a weird thing. It's hard to describe. I kind of joked about it before. I wonder if Bryce Terang has a high enough batting average to win a Gold Glove where it shouldn't matter at all. But I think he hit well enough this year and was so elite defensively that he really deserves it. Sal Frelick also has a lot of favorable defensive metrics. I don't think he has as much of a name to go win a Gold Glove. He's got a really good highlight reel. I will say that. He saved a couple of games. I remember he robbed that home run, I believe, against Philly to save a game and essentially that was in Los Angeles. They beat the Angels where Sal Frelick robbed a home run to save the game. But a couple of other really great plays on the line for Sal Frelick. I think he's got a shot. I don't think he'll win one. Blake Perkins, I think, has a little bit better of a chance to win a Gold Glove in the outfield. He robbed 5 home runs this season, and the only 2 other players in all of Major League Baseball history to rob 5 home runs in a season also played for the Milwaukee Brewers. Those were Lorenzo Cain in 2018 and Carlos Gomez in 2013. Both from the Milwaukee Brewers. They both won Gold Gloves that year. The metrics are also favorable for Blake Perkins. Of course, with robbing 5 home runs, you have a great highlight reel in just that. But one of the quickest defenders, one of the best defenders in all of baseball. I think Terang should win one for sure. And I think Perkins has probably about a 50-50 chance of winning a Gold Glove, which those are really cool accolades. Of course, you don't want to be talking about that as Brewers fans right now. You wish you were talking about a National League Championship Series and talking about possibly going to a World Series, but that's kind of where we're at. We're just going to hope for postseason awards, and I think the one for the best postseason award, I think Bryce Terang winning a Gold Glove at second base And I think William Contreras winning a Silver Slugger at the catcher position, which means he is the best hitter at his position. And I think he should win that in a landslide. Other than that, if it were a different season, I think Jackson Chourio would be up for Rookie of the Year contention. But you've had two superstar rookies in the National League. Paul Skeens for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Everybody knows him as Livy Dunn's boyfriend, but there is also Jackson Merrill, a very, very good center fielder for the San Diego Padres. Had an incredible season, even better than Jackson Chourio. I know I talked about it probably about a month ago, but Merrill did end up surpassing Jackson Chourio in that. And I don't know who's going to win the NL Rookie of the Year, but Jackson Chourio, he'll take third. He deserves it. If it were any other year, he probably would win it. But two superstars ahead of him, I wouldn't expect anything too crazy. But yeah, that's the big news that I have today. Of course, Davante Adams going to the New York Jets, the Milwaukee Brewers with 3 Gold Glove finalists, Bryce Trang, Blake Perkins, and Sal Frelick. My name is Cody Depius. I'm your host. I want to thank you for being with us today, as we'll see you once again tomorrow for another edition of A Little Bit of Cheese, your daily bite-sized Wisconsin sports podcast.